Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 12 in the 68 Mustang fastback conversion build that I'm working on. Now I'm doing things a little different today because the video camera that I used in the last video has failed me. So now I have out one of my GoPros and I'm having to hold it in my hand and experiment a little bit. I will show you that this is the camera that I normally use. This is a Canon HFR 800 and the little flip out screen quit working, and so I made an attempt to disassemble one of my other Canon cameras and use the screen from that to make it work. Now I was able to do that, but it doesn't work, so I am now going with the GoPro. So let me make sure that I have to click on the back of the screen to make this screen come up. So a little bit different today in what I'm doing. In the previous video, I worked on the frame rails, the torque boxes, and all of that is now welded solid. Very happy with all of that. And I mentioned in the previous video that the next thing I want to do is take care of the cowl. So I'm going to address that in this video, but I'm going to show you some of the things that I have accomplished while I'm moving into this next phase. So let me get out my handy dandy pointer and show you what I've done. So as I mentioned, I welded in the firewall, I welded in the torque boxes, and I did place welds here on the edge of the torque box, welds here, and of course welds on the bottom side. But I want to show you now that I also have welded in this torque box. Now this one, the fitment here was a little bit different in that the lower section kind of sits offset to the upper piece. Not a big deal, I'm just pointing that out. So what I did is I added a few more welds on that edge just to strengthen it up a little more, and you can see I have the welds here on this edge as well, and everything is welded on the bottom side. Now I have not welded the frame rails, or the aprons I should say, to the firewall just yet, and of course the cowl needs to be welded in as well. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to work on getting the cowl in place. I'll start with the lower cowl, and it's pretty well lined up. You know, you've got the holes here in the upper portion of the firewall, and those can vary. I mean, you can run into all kinds of variables when it comes to these sort of holes, but I want to take off the upper piece, set the lower piece in place, weld it in, and then I'm going to do some treatment work to the chimneys. Underneath here is where the vent is, so I need to put some seam sealer around the base of the chimney, and then I want to put some I use Rust-Oleum paint on the inside of, or the upper side of the lower cowl, let's put it that way. Once I have all that in place and I'm happy with that, then I will likely come back and finish out these side pieces, getting those welded in. And as I point out every time, I test fit these pieces. So I may hang the doors again, I may hang the fenders again, just to verify everything is where I like it, even to the point of the upper cowl piece, because once it's in, you're done. There's nowhere else for that to go. So you want to make sure everything interacts the same whenever it's together versus when it's apart. So I'm going to get prepped for that. And as I said, I'm experimenting with this GoPro camera at this point because my other camera is no longer working. But I have another one on order. I think what I'll do at this point is I'll set the fender up here just to get this, make sure this is right. I don't think anything is moved. And then I'll put some marks up here in the corner so that I know it's where I want it. The bottom section I'm not going to worry about because it's pretty well set where it needs to be. Yep, I'm going to say that's good. So what I normally do is put like a hash mark on this panel and this other, the frame panel, and that way they line up. And as always, I'm not trying to force anything into position. So get these pieces clamped down, and then I can start welding and get this attached as I want it. Now on the front here, I'm going to try to get these holes lined up as close as I can. These holes going down through. They may not, because it's just variations in these materials. But I can definitely get them very, very close. And this, of course, is why it pays to have about 100 set of ice grips. Now I'm still using the 30 thousandths wire, but I've turned the heat down a little, and I'm just going to run with it. You can use, and I've used it in the past, the 023 or 025, whatever that wire size is, but I'm okay with this. The hard part with using this camera is I can't zoom. Okay. Now the next step, grinding. All right, all welded, all ground down. And what I will do here, I don't always do this, but I'm doing this for the benefit of those who want to use weld through primer. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go over top of all of these welds. Now, I have doubts about how useful weld through primer is, because whenever you're welding, you burn this stuff out. So you are maybe getting a circle of protection around the edge here. But if you're comfortable using it and your welding is good, no problem. Don't worry about it. Use it and make it happen. Now the next thing I want to address, right, is this chimney, as I mentioned previously. So I don't know if y'all understand the physics of it, but you've got your vents up here, and when rainwater comes in, or when you wash your car, it drains, it follows the curve, and it comes around here on either side, and it comes out down here. This is the why there's an opening on the side of the, let me see if it's showing what I'm pointing at. Okay, so like I said, the water comes down here, goes around, and it drains out here. The problem we run into is when these cars were originally made, they didn't even put primer in here. They just put these things together with bare metal. And so they were destined to fail just for that reason alone. But what we can do is take advantage of the fact that we have an opening right now. So I use brushable seam sealer. Now this happens to be Speed Coat. I've used Eastwood. Probably it's all very much the same. And I like it because it's kind of like peanut butter. Like it's a very creamy product. Okay, so very simply, I'll just take some on my finger and I will create an overlap here. Like I don't want water to get trapped underneath this lip at any point in the future. So by creating a way for the water to travel around without getting underneath, we can eliminate that. You don't want to build a bridge or anything. You just want to make it a smooth transition. And you can, this is meant to be used with a brush. In this case, I'm just using my finger because it's pretty convenient. Let me step around the other side here. Can't see around this edge. Like I said, it's actually creamier. It's more like icing. That's how smooth this stuff is. So you'll put some all the way around. And usually got to be pretty quick or else it'll set up on you. So once I have all that in place, I'll do it on both sides. Then I'll come back and coat the inside of this. Now typically I use Rust-Oleum because it's a very tough product and it'll hold up well to weather. So here's a simple Rust-Oleum Professional High Performance Enamel 15-minute fast dry, any angle spray, and I will coat the whole inside of this except for where I did the overlap of the weld through primer. So that's what we do. And I will point out there are other ways to approach this with the paint. Like I've seen people actually paint this interior area body color, let it cure, and then they put a piece of plastic inside of here before they welded the top on, and then left it in there the whole time that they were building the car, rebuilding the car, and then they paint the exterior. And the idea is you can come through the hole here on the side and pull that plastic out. But I always question what's the risk of that getting stuck in there or having problems. So I'm just going to paint it black and be done with it. All right, I had sprayed this initially with a semi-gloss Rust-Oleum, and I decided I didn't like that. I went and got some flat black, and the reason for that is reflection. So, you know, if you do get overspray on this, it's going to blend in a lot more. If you have the gloss, you could, you know, sunlight could reflect it, but somebody really has to be looking through those vents to even see this stuff. You don't see it in passing. You have to physically get up high and look down inside the vents. So it's not a huge concern as far as the way I look at things. You can also, if you wanted to, I typically don't, you could spray the underside of the upper cowl. Not much to gain from that. You know, these cars, they don't experience the weather like we did when they were new. You know, they were driven all the time in all kinds of weather. And now we treat these cars a lot differently. So, you know, adding the seam sealer here is beneficial just because, and especially if you were planning on taking these cars out and using them for daily purposes. You know, you want to try to protect these things. So you may also notice I do not have the core support in, and it fits in very nicely. I don't have any issues with it, but I thought I would leave it loose so when I get to the point of putting suspension pieces in, I have easier access through the midsection. Now that doesn't mean I won't clamp it in place. I may do that as well, but if I need to move it, I can pull it out of the way. And now I'm ready to install the upper half of the cowl. So I'm going to get that in place. I may just double check some things as I normally do, and then weld that in, and then be done basically with the cowl, other than blending and any other additional seam sealing. I also want to point out this. So on these pieces here, you have this little index hole, and there's a hole down below. You can see my finger through it. I can also see this direction, a bit of a hole. And now the intent of these, when they were building these pieces, is this hole is supposed to overlap that hole. And it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes, you know, the material is maybe stamped in the wrong spot. Who knows? But the fact is you can't change the shape of this cowl piece. Like, you're not going to pull this out to make it match that hole, and you're not going to push this in to make it match that hole, because you're limited. There's nothing you can do to change these dimensions. So keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff like this and you go, oh no, I did something wrong. It's not the way it works. I mean, there's too many things that come into play. Like you can see this one here, it's closer, but the fact is you can't change these dimensions and have everything work out. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to get the upper half on and weld it into place. reset the fenders. I just like to verify things. That's how I operate. It's tricky with this camera. It is so tricky because I can't change the zoom on it. I think I may nudge it just this way, just a little, like just that much towards the driver's side. Thing I'll look at is the alignment of the holes for the windshield wipers. Now, just because I'm thinking about it, I want to set the dash loosely in place. It's like it was made for it. You know, you hear that little bit of popping? That's my fault. Because I got a little carried away with Rust-Oleum and got it on that surface, and I shouldn't have done that. But it burns it out. That's what it's doing, is it's burning it out at the moment. Whew. How did that happen? Somehow a hot spark got through that little cup in my sleeve right there and rolled all the way down to my elbow. Ha ha! I'm awake now. You just step right up into that space and do some welding. I'm not going to bore you by showing you every single weld. So at this point I have the whole front section welded in. I took the dash back out just so I can make sure I have all these clamped in place, and I'm going to weld that together. Now before I finish these up, I want to tell you, I had forgotten to make these 3 holes where it meets this flange. I'd already welded everything. It's not a big deal. You just take like a, I don't know, 1/4-inch drill bit, drill a hole. Don't go all the way through. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. And then take like a 5/16 and come on top of that, and it'll create a hole that you can weld through. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you panic, you're like, oh no, I forgot something. But in this case, you can create a hole big enough that you can weld. Permanent. Okay, everything's welded in. I must say I broke a sweat because it's still warm or hot and muggy here in Georgia, but I've got to continue on. I like having the door open. So anyway, at this point, I have several things I want to address. One is the aprons, right? I want to make sure they're indexed because you can still move these even though I have a screw in the going through the firewall. And then secondly is these connected pieces. I don't really know what the name of these are, but I talked about this before, how this will connect your apron to the cowl. And part of the problem I ran into was this radius right here is too thick, let's say, and it's hitting this edge of the cowl. The other part is these little tabs, which I looked at the other one, this bend is not even in the right spot between the two of these. Like, it looks more consistent with this when you set it in place that it's going to line up. The other one is bent lower and it kicks this thing up kind of crooked. The most important thing is to get the alignment of your fender bolts, right? But then as we try to push this down, we've got to make sure the welds are taken care of underneath this. I may have to rebend this flange as well because I can see it's fighting the process, because you want this to all kind of look flush and be consistent. I can't say that it's going to be because there's variables with all these parts, as I mentioned many times. You know, you can move this thing around and try to get it where you want it, but ultimately I think I need to rebend at least this flange to get it to drop down into that area. So What I want to do at this point is address some of these welds and try to get them knocked down so that they don't interfere with the fitment of that strap piece. So the belt sander is very handy for that. That's probably about as close as it needs to be. So I'll punch a hole here, 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 probably 3 here, and then 3 up here. Double check my alignment and weld that on. Well, after I verify everything with the fender once again, because that's just how it works. Okay, holes are punched. I'm committed now on the flange location. Very happy with all of this, you know, it's where it's going to be. So I'm going to weld these locations of the apron to the firewall, and I'm also going to weld this in place and make it permanent. also have put weld through primer here for these contact points. So you can see the holes that I made, like I said. Okay, once again, that's not going anywhere. So at this point, I have both of these connector plates welded in. The aprons are welded to the firewall. The cowl is welded to the side piece of the car and also to the top of the firewall, and everything is looking really good. You know, when I'm doing these processes and I talk about test fitting and everything else, another thing that I do is a visual, and I try to look at things like the shape of the core support in relation to the shape of the firewall. So when you look across, everything lines up really nice. And I'm very happy with how this is turning out. Now, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do for the next video. I know that I still have to figure out the roll bar situation, but I'm also to the point where I could start putting the front suspension underneath. So I may look at that. There's still some things I need to do in the back of the car that'll come later, but it may make more sense, I think, possibly, to go ahead and do the roll bar, and then I can finish the roof and all that stuff. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm still kind of playing with ideas in my mind as to what the next video should be. Now, also, I'll point out that I had used a variety of tools in this video, and one of those was this little air punch. Now, this is available on Amazon. There's variations of this. I think the newer version is black, but there will be a link for that. There's also a link in the description box down below for the yes welder, in this case the DP200. And then anything else that I've used or shown that is available will be in the Amazon links and stuff like that in the bottom in the description box. Now, with that said, I'm hoping that this video turns out okay, because I have not used this GoPro for this purpose. I've done various shots with the GoPro cameras, but I've not made a specific video entirely with a GoPro. So hopefully this pays off and all this footage turns out fine. But that'll be the end of this video. You know, I tried to cover as many details as I can when I do these processes, and I hope you get something out of it. If you would, hit the thumbs up and like button. And I want to thank my patrons who continue to support me when I make these videos. So you can look at that as well down below in the description box if you're interested in possibly becoming a patron. Otherwise, there's a feature I think now where they call a hype button or something. Well, maybe if you hit that hype button, that'll help with this video being viewed more by people on YouTube. But that's the end of this video. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.